What if the most powerful man in the company vanished overnight? Not because he lost everything but because someone quietly stole it all while the world looked away? And what if the only person who could save him was someone the world never even noticed? This isn't just a story about betrayal or power. It's about the invisible, the underestimated, and the single act of kindness that set off a chain reaction no one saw coming. But before you guess who wins, ask yourself, how much can a simple sandwich truly change? Have you ever wondered if a single moment of kindness could rewrite not just one life but two? Emily Rhodes never expected the answer to that question would start with a peanut butter sandwich, and a secret that could shake a whole company. It was barely sunrise. Central Park wrapped in that soft, silvery light that makes anything seem possible. Emily walked the same path she'd taken for years, always unnoticed, always alone. Her world was a series of routines, quiet, invisible, forgettable. But this morning something was different. On a cold stone bench, a man lay curled in an expensive coat, looking like he'd lost a war with the night. Something about the way he slept, guarded, tense, pulled at Emily's heart. She hesitated. Who was he, this stranger who wore power like a faded memory? Without thinking, she left her sandwich and thermos beside him and slipped away, unaware that he was awake, and that the scar on his hand had graced every company newsletter she'd ever seen. The CEO she'd never met. The man who vanished 3 weeks ago was now 20 feet from her morning routine. But what she couldn't see in that moment was that her quiet act had planted a seed, and life was about to grow in ways she never imagined. Emily returned to her world of spreadsheets and whispers, where rumors about the missing CEO buzzed like flies around old secrets. Nobody noticed her except for Darren Cook, the CFO with a smile colder than steel. "I need all of Jonathan's expense reports," he ordered, his voice a warning and a threat. Emily nodded, realizing something ugly was brewing. An audit. An accusation. The start of a storm. But that evening, Emily took the long way home, drawn back to that bench. The man was there again, less wild but still worn. She greeted him quietly. "You're the sandwich angel," he said, half joking, half broken. "And you're John," she replied, both knowing they were playing a game with names. They sat together, sharing stories about mothers lost too soon, about pain, about learning to stand alone in a world too big to care. For a moment it felt like maybe they could both breathe again. They didn't know someone else was watching. Someone who saw Emily's compassion as a threat, and who was already planning to use both of them for his own gain. As the days passed, Emily and Jonathan's silent bond grew stronger. She brought him coffee, hope, and the gift of being seen. He told her the truth about the company, contracts he never signed, signatures that felt wrong, trust unraveling thread by thread. Emily realized the corporate world wasn't just about numbers, it was about power, and the ways people stole it when no one was watching. But every time she met Jonathan, she wondered, could kindness survive in a world built on ambition and secrets? Then came the news. An email, cold and final. Jonathan Hayes had resigned. Darren Cook, interim CEO. The office buzzed with gossip, but Emily saw through the lies. Jonathan hadn't resigned, he'd been erased. She raced to their bench, finding Jonathan weaker than ever, fever burning in his eyes. "You're not fine," she insisted. "Let me help." And she did, dragging him to Dr. Chen's clinic, risking her own safety to save a man who once seemed untouchable. But kindness has a way of exposing secrets nobody wants revealed. At the clinic, a slip of an ID card, a receptionist's gasp, and suddenly the puzzle pieces started to fit together. Why was the company still running smoothly? Who was really in control? Emily's mind raced. As Jonathan rested, she started digging, uncovering transaction after transaction, all pointing to Darren. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a heist, and Jonathan was the mark. Emily's quiet courage ignited into action. She spent the night hunting through digital trails, shell companies, fake signatures, secret meetings. She pieced together a plot so cold it sent shivers down her spine. Darren had weaponized Jonathan's trauma, using his pain as cover to steal everything. Emily realized she was the only one who knew the truth. But would anyone believe her? And was she brave enough to risk everything for someone else's redemption? She didn't sleep. By dawn, she'd built a case that could take down a king. The next morning, Emily went to Jonathan, not as a shy accountant, but as a warrior with the truth. "This isn't your failure, Jonathan. This is someone stealing your life while you were grieving." Her words cut through his despair, and together they formed a plan. Expose Darren, reclaim the truth, and maybe, just maybe, find themselves in the process. But first, Jonathan had to become the CEO again, not just in title but in spirit. Emily coached him through long nights, helping him remember laughter, strength, and what it meant to be seen. Somewhere in those quiet moments, their connection deepened. Walls fell. And when Jonathan finally looked in the mirror, he saw not just a survivor, but a leader ready to fight. Tuesday arrived, thunder rumbling as if the city itself sensed what was coming. Jonathan walked into the boardroom, suit sharp, gaze steady. Emily watched from her corner, her evidence ready. Darren's confidence cracked as Jonathan laid out the truth, every fake signature, every stolen dollar, every lie. The board saw the evidence. Security led Darren away. Justice at last found its voice. But for Emily, the real victory came after. Jonathan found her at her desk, pride in his eyes. "They want you to be director of internal compliance," he said. "You're the reason any of this was possible." Emily's heart pounded with fear and hope. Was she ready to step out of invisibility, to become someone whose story couldn't be erased? On their old park bench, beneath a sky blazing with the promise of new beginnings, Jonathan handed her a letter, a promise, and a bouquet of wildflowers. "Sometimes the most important thing you can do for someone is simply see them," he said. Emily smiled, finally understanding that her courage had rewritten more than a company's fate. It had changed her own. 6 months later, Emily stood before a crowd, launching a program for second chances. A home for the lost, the invisible, the ones everyone else forgets. She looked into Jonathan's eyes and knew, sometimes a sandwich, a smile, a single act of kindness can change the world. And sometimes, the greatest story is the one that begins when you decide to see someone, truly see them, for the very first time.